So at that moment when the call ended, my internet went out. I had to go help my dad because my grandmother fell, and everything just kind of fell apart right at that moment there. So that is my bad, and everything was a mess, and I apologize. Jeremiah was giving some great information, and all of a sudden I just disappeared, and the whole thing ended. So I apologize for that. So what
So,
we'll do here is we'll at least give this a try, and Jeremiah, what we'll do is we'll schedule another one of these in
okay.
next week or so that we can redo this for anybody who's kind of hit or miss on everything. So I know when I was leaving, you were starting to talk about pretty much the cost of compliance versus when it was time to kind of register in that state, and then kind of going
Yeah.
from.
Yeah. So here we go. We're getting a few viewers here. Right now I only see 5 folks. Maybe you want to give folks a few more,
Yeah, you'll be
or
fine.
you want to just run through it. Okay. Yeah. So kind of where I left off was of weighing that cost, and I think I got through most of that. Of the states that you don't have, let's say a few states. Let's just, okay, for example's sake, because assume you're using taxjar.com and you have an idea of how much sales tax you should have collected over the last several months or over this past year. Um, Basically, and I told him, Chris, with you, we decided, there's, certain, we made a threshold for ourselves in states that had less, your liability didn't hit a certain mark. We just said, hey, we're not gonna register in those states yet. But the states that were over, we went ahead and registered. So for you, it was like I don't even remember. It was like $300 or $400 when
Yeah,
we
that
hit
sounds
that
about right.
when we hit $300 or $400 in sales tax liability for the year, or since you started your business, then we went ahead and started registering. So, and then I told them, so once you figure out, okay, when should I register? The next step is obviously once you register, is start collecting that sales tax, and you do that through Amazon, through their seller settings, to the Seller Central, and go into the tax settings. And I told him I was going to send him some resources with specific details. TaxStar has a little guide where they show screenshots. It's a lot prettier than I could do it.
Okay.
And it shows screenshots of how to go in and where to press buttons and what to do. So and obviously I'll be there for support if folks start to they get to that point and they want to start collecting sales tax, and then they give it a shot and they're like, hey, I think I'm stumped. Did I do this right? Kind of thing. And I'll obviously I'll be there for some support and answer some questions or make sure you guys get set up right.
Yeah.
So
So
mhm.
one question I know that I saw on Facebook or the Facebook group while I was trying to get everything fixed here was some people go, doesn't Amazon already collect sales tax, and isn't that the buyer's responsibility then? And I just kind of want you to touch base on the fact that Amazon does collect it, but we're technically other businesses selling under Amazon. So if you could kind of explain that a little better than my mumbo jumbo is.
Yeah, so sales tax is what's considered, I guess the technical term is it's a flow-through tax. And what that means is it's actually the business's responsibility to collect it and then pay it to the state. So we're actually like, the state, the way they set it up is, I guess they trust businesses more than individuals to pay sales tax. So they automatically make us the enforcers of sales tax. So what happens is you set up Amazon to collect the sales tax, and then what happens is they actually push that out to you in your deposit when it hits your account. And so there should be a breakdown of if you go look in your it should be a breakdown. If you collected $40 of sales tax, it'll actually Amazon will send you that money. So that adds a little added layer of complexity for sure. And maybe what you want to do is create, start to earmark some of that money so you don't consider it as your own, that kind of thing. But there's some different options there.
Okay. So now that it's time, I've decided I've hit a threshold, I'm ready to go. I know that I've been paying you to help me register in all of the
hmm
states.
hmm
Um, can people do it on their own? Is it that hard? Should they? what should they be doing with it?
So the answer there is it's hit or miss, and the reason why is because some states are quite simple and some states are quite complex. So let's take Tennessee for example. Tennessee is actually a very they've done a lot of work to try to simplify their tax process because they don't want to make any hurdles for sellers to pay them money, which makes a lot of sense. But then you consider states like Pennsylvania or states like Arizona, and it does get a bit complicated. So honestly, anyone can do it. There's definitely no requirement that you have to have any kind of license or certification to end up registering with a state. So honestly, I'd say expect to spend between 30 minutes and 2 hours per state to register if you're going to do it on your own, and so then it comes down to what is your time worth, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit too, is opportunity cost. Is your time worth, and does it cost? Does it make sense to outsource it, or does it make sense to do it on your own? And I'll say this: I think people in the beginning, they should start off with their home state. Register in your home state, wherever that is. If you live in Indiana, register in Indiana to get started. You can. Yeah. So you're asking, is it too complex to do it on your own, or does it make sense?
Yeah, so on mine, for instance, so everyone knows, when I got started, I actually registered in Indiana, Tennessee by myself, stumbled through Texas, and got through Florida just fine, and then pretty much just said, Jeremiah, help me out, because it was that opportunity cost bit of things. And everything that I think of is in kind of the world of economics. That's kind of my background. So, for instance, I think of things where if I could be out sourcing an item and going to a store and making $300-400 or $50 or whatever that is, or I could sit in front of a computer, bang my head against it, and go, why in the world did I decide to try to register for sales tax in Arizona? Or I could pay Jeremiah to do it. I kind of weigh my time and how much it's worth to me, and then I go from there. So for people who have a lower value of their time, it's a lot easier for you to do it yourself. There's going to be a learning curve, but you can get through it just fine. You're going to be able to do it. So don't let that kind of scare you. There's some great resources out there. I know TaxJar has some fantastic ones that'll kind of walk you through the process of it.
Yeah.
But for those of you who are kind of at the point where you could do it, but you're not sure it's worth your time, it may be an interesting thing to do some that are the easier ones to register for, and then outsource the other ones. And then for those of you out there who are making a lot of money through selling online and kind of just want to get it done with, that's where you kind of outsource the whole kit caboodle, get it out there, get it done, so it's out there. So I think there's a few different areas, and I know we're going to talk here in just a few minutes about online bookkeeping, because that's what else Jeremiah kind of does for me, and I kind of want to show you the importance of that, because I know myself, I'm a very unorganized person. I try so hard, and I know Jeremiah probably wants to hit me sometimes because I'm a little unorganized, and I know I get those calls or text messages going, hey, can you get me this? So I apologize for that. But there's those points to where you realize something has to be done, and it either needs to be done internally for you at your business, or you need to find another route of getting it done. Either way, it has to be done. So it's just finding out which way works the best for you. So the whole idea behind this Google Hangout was just kind of give you the lead, kind of the guidance to what you should be doing, so that you can decide if you want to do it, or if you have questions. I found a great resource who can be able to answer those. And if there's ever a time, he's here to help. So the next sorry, that was a tangent, and I apologize. But after you register, Jeremiah, I registered great. Then I started getting these pieces of mail that said I owed money and I missed my filing date. What do you do once you actually register?
Yeah. So then you have to periodically file. And the reason I say periodically is because some states will require you to do it monthly, some will do it quarterly, and some annual. In my experience, pretty much everyone fits into. I guess I should say most smaller to medium-sized sellers will fit into kind of a quarterly. And in some states are generous and they make you only file annually. And so how you file, there's a couple of routes. So you can e-file directly to the state, and you're going to have to be prepared to have, either an Excel document or a sales tax report from TaxJar, and you just go and manually plug all that in. TaxJar has a really cool service called AutoFile, and for $20 per state per file, you literally click a button and they'll go grab all your sales tax data and they'll go file it for you. One caveat is you have to have you needed to have collected sales tax from Amazon to do that. So they won't remit. I guess they won't file for you unless you've started to collect sales tax from Amazon. It's a weird quirk with their system, but that's how it is. And then the other option is to get someone to manually file for you. So just for example, in some other sales tax services, we charge $60 per manual file. So you connect me to your TaxJar account, and I'll go find all the necessary reports. I'll break down the numbers, and I'll go, file on someone's behalf. So you can either do yourself directly. You can auto-file with TaxJar, but I'll tell you, I believe only 8 FBA states TaxJar at this time auto-files for you. So there are 8 other states you're either going to have to do yourself directly to the website, or you're going to have to get someone to do for you.
Yeah, so just some things to think about on the sales tax end, and I know that there'll be questions along the way, and once again, if it's anything related to the sales tax, I highly recommend reaching out in the Facebook group to Jeremiah. He's in both of the FBA Master Group and the BOLO group. You can also shoot me an email, and I can give you his contact information, and I can pass that along to him, to you, and then kind of connect everyone. But he's a great guy and knows his stuff when it comes to the sales tax world, so he can at least get you started in the right direction and make sure that you're compliant in the states where you need to be compliant to. So kind of the next spin-off of that is when we go into the online or the bookkeeping. Like I said before, my method of bookkeeping before talking with Jeremiah consisted of me taking everything that I bought put in a receipt saying that was a purchase, and then every time I got a paycheck from Amazon, that was my profit, and going from there, figuring that was pretty much as complex as I needed to get. So I now have Jeremiah running my books because it's just a lot easier on my end. But Jeremiah, can you kind of explain the value of bookkeeping and why people should even consider doing it? And I know there's tax purposes when you actually find your income taxes, but why should I care?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you highlighted the first reason is, you got to give something to the state for income taxes, and so that's where you're bookkeeping. For a lot of people, sole proprietors, if you're by yourself, it's basically whether you have an LLC or you don't have any entity yet, your net profit is going to flow through to your personal income. So obviously you need to know what your revenues and your expenses are, and the difference of that is your income for tax purposes. But more importantly, and I think the reason that's most undervalued is it gives you insight into your business. So I guess we all, I sell on Amazon. I'm a small seller. I know you sell on Amazon, and we kind of have just a general idea of kind of how profitable we are, But sometimes it can be very eye-opening to realize, to pull back the layer and you realize, whoa, I'm not as profitable as I thought I was. Or, wow, I'm making a ton of money with this stuff and not so much this. Or, man, my shipping and postage is really eating into my profits. And the only way you'll really know that is if you have, a full picture of your income and your expenses side by side. So that's really, for me, in my own business, if I don't know how profitable or where I need to cut my expenses so I can take more money home at the end of the day, I'm just shooting in the dark a little. So I think that's, for me, even more than the tax compliance, which is most people's main concern. It's just the insight into your own business, I think, is the most important.
Yeah, and I can definitely see where that could be a issue at with my even with my business is I kind of estimate a lot of things. For instance, how much it costs me per pound to ship, when I'm using services from Amazon, when I'm using prep services myself, so labels, bags. It it's one thing that I kind of know overall. As long as I'm paying my credit cards that I'm putting all this on, I'm making money, but there's probably some cost savings, and we're getting everything kind of organized right now with seeing where everything's at. But I know there's going to be some cost savings and some additional profits being made from kind of being able to look at what areas are most profitable, what are not, where am I spending the most, and how can I increase profits and reduce cost. And I can't do that with my current system.
Sure, sure.
So
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
no, yeah. So there's that one part where you can have idea, bookkeeping can save you money because you can cut costs, and then there's that, yeah. Then that, well, we'll get into it later of the value of having a bookkeeper, but there's that time issue too. So what were you gonna say? Sorry.
So, what kind of tools do you recommend people use for their bookkeeping? I know when I started off, I used one called Wave Apps,
Yeah.
and that kind of goes way back to my digital marketing business that I had before doing Amazon selling. It was kind of the software I was comfortable with and kind of just rolled it all into one. I know I'm getting away from it, but what tools are out there that are kind of built for Amazon sellers?
Yeah. Well, let me say this. Where to get started with bookkeeping, the most important thing is you just got to capture all the info. If there's any one thing that would say to people to get started, you got to figure out a system to get all your info captured, and preferably into one system. But it ends up becoming a huge nightmare if at the end of the year you're trying to hunt down receipts and you're not even sure if you got all your receipts, and then you're getting you're printing off reports from Amazon. So the first thing is you want to be able to capture all that info, and at the very base level, to make your bookkeeping sane, you need to have a separate bank account and a separate credit card if you use credit cards. If that's going to just save you an immense amount of time. And some people say they stress the importance. The reason why is because bookkeeping gets 10 times more difficult when you have personal and business stuff intermingling in the same account. So that's my first recommendation for any tool or hack or whatever, is get a separate account so that when I look into when you look into your bank account, all you have is business expenses and business revenue coming in there. That's going to save you a ton of time. And as far as tools, though, to make sense of all that information that hits your bank accounts and credit cards, I tell people there's three kind of levels. There's the super cheap level for folks that really don't want to spend time. Don't want to spend money on it. And maybe you're very, 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 very fresh and want to at least get something. I call this the $10 to $20 a month range. And you can use something like Wave Apps, which it's free, is it not, Chris?
Yes.
Do they have any kind of, yeah. Or you can use a service like Mint.com. And those, you connect your bank accounts into it, and it starts to pull that data in, and you can start to label different expenses to where they belong. And so when you mix, a free tool like Mint or Wave App with TaxJar to monitor your sales tax, you're looking at $10 a month. Or if you use GoDaddy, they bought out a bookkeeping software called Outright. Outright, they kind of tried to find a little niche here with Amazon sellers, and there's a way in Outright they can capture some of your data, Amazon sales data. So if you use something like GoDaddy and TaxJar together, I think GoDaddy's like, I know they run promotions, but it's like $100 a year for GoDaddy, so that's like $8 a month. So $8 plus TaxJar is $10. So you're looking at $20 a month, and that's your very low level bookkeeping. That's your as cheap as you go. There's downsides to that. There's the real problem with those is you don't have safeguards to make sure you're not duplicating, or there's no safeguards to make sure you have like you aren't missing transactions, that kind of thing. So so that's one level, and I'm going to send you guys all these resources. But the next level up is to use a system like what I use called Xero, or you use something like Inventory Lab, and now you're getting into like a $50 to $60 range. Hi Matthew, how's it going? I'm gonna hide you, brother. Okay. Sorry about that. It was friendly, I promise. So like at the $50 to $60 level, you start to get into some more powerful software, some things that are a bit more legitimate and a bit more can save you a lot more time. So I use a software called Xero. It's a cloud-based software that actually has taken over the world overseas in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, and it's just now coming over here. So it's kind of the new breed of accounting software. I love it. It makes my world go round as an accountant, and it's something I use it exclusively. So there is like QuickBooks Online and those kind of tools. So you can use, and the real cool thing with those is you can actually automatically pull in your bank feed, bank data, but then it also talks with other software. So that's when you get to that level, you start to be able to integrate things called add-ons. And those serve specific functions. Like Xero has an add-on where it'll go and pull all your Amazon sales directly into its system. And then it'll have all your seller fees and everything broken down. And then when that deposit hits your account, you literally click one button and it reconciles everything for you. All the revenues and seller fees go where they belong. So there's software like that. Another tool set might be something, I know people love Inventory Lab. So you can use something like Inventory Lab with TaxJar. The cool thing about Inventory Lab is it can capture your cost of the items that you sell. So that is one of the coolest features as a bookkeeper I love about Inventory Lab is as you're setting everything up and listing it on Amazon, you can actually tell it what you bought it for at the time of listing so that when it sells, you can keep track of all that, because that can be a nightmare for bookkeepers and business owners. So that's one level. And then the next level is a combination. So Xero and QuickBooks Online, they don't track inventory very well, but Inventory Lab does. The only problem with Inventory Lab is it doesn't. It's not a traditional accounting system. So when you put the two together, you get to about $100 to $110 per month, and that becomes an amazing tool where you can automate really large pieces of your bookkeeping. Where what used to take you 5 to 10 hours, 20 hours, that might be a little excessive, but 5 to 10 to 15 hours per month with manually coding everything in, it could take only 2 to 3 or 4 hours a month. So yeah, so those are kind of the ranges: 10 to 20 for low level, 50 to 60 for mid level, and then around 100, 110, you can get some really powerful software to talk together. So that's what and I'm going to put together a list of all that for you guys so that you can go investigate that more yourself.
Yeah, so we have a few coming here, Jeremiah, so I'll ask that. I have Matthew who joined. He asked, I'm currently using Inventory Lab and a Neat Desk scanner. What else should I add?
Yeah, well, if you can afford it, I would add something like Xero to it. And here's the reason why. With Inventory Lab, you have to manually code in your other expenses and keep track of that. So you're going to have to, be going into your bank to pull out account transactions or into your credit card and pulling that and manually coding that into Inventory Lab. But if you use something like Xero, it brings all that in for you. So then it will know if you miss transactions. There's I guess safeguards to make sure you got all your data. So Xero is like $30 a month. So Inventory Lab's around 50. And you throw in TaxJar, that's like $10 a month. And I use a tool called A2X Accounting to break down my fees. I think Inventory Lab can do that. So I would throw in something like Zero, and you capture all that data into Zero, and then through Inventory Lab, you can just shoot over the expenses for the inventory that you purchased.
And Matthew, yes, Zero will pull in your Amazon data. That was the A2X thingy-majigger that Jeremiah was just talking about that I tried to put in and work with, and that's why Jeremiah is helping me now, because sometimes I am a very technical savvy person, and then when it comes to actually doing things that need to get done, I kind of fall on my butt a lot of the times with the tech. So, but yes, it'll pull that information over, and it'll actually kind of break everything down for you
Yeah.
through that. So you kind of, instead of just getting one lump sum, you can actually see where everything went and how that looks.
Yeah.
So, Jeremiah, I know that we kind of had a game plan going into this, and I know you probably have a few other points to touch on, so I'll just kind of let you go with the final points. And
Mhm.
then I have just a few questions from people once everything's done that we'll kind of cover. So go ahead and finish up. But
Yeah,
just so everyone knows, we'll be putting a kind of a PDF together of all of these key takeaways and resources. It'll be on the Facebook groups and on the FBA master site. I'll have Jeremiah's contact information on there. So anybody who's trying to take down notes like a crazy person, we will be getting this together in the next few days and then kind of putting it out there for anyone who needs it.
Right on. Yeah, really my last point, Chris, was a question I get asked a lot, and something you wanted me to touch on was when does it make sense to outsource some of this stuff? And we touched on sales tax, and I guess I wanted to talk a little bit more about that opportunity cost. Is it really comes down to what is your time worth and what's an hour of your time worth. So if you look at your net income and not your gross income, because a lot of expenses come out of that. Let's say you're selling $6,000 a month on Amazon, and you're probably taking home, I don't know, around two grand or so. So let's say you put in I don't know, 40 hours a month into it, and you bring 10, you make 10. You make 2,000 in net profit a month. If you divide your net profit by the time you put into it, so 40 hours, you realize you make $50 an hour doing Amazon. So then it really comes down to, if I spend, if you spend 5 hours or 10 hours a month doing sales tax, doing sales tax and bookkeeping, at $50 an hour, you're spending $250 to $500 in opportunity costs by doing your own bookkeeping or sales tax work. And I'm not trying to sell my services. I'm just trying to help you out, guys, as business owners, realize when is it a good time. So just to give you a figure, a lot of bookkeepers, their kind of low-level package starts right around $200 a month, and then their packages go higher than that. So if you realize, I could make, if I hand off this stuff, sales tax or bookkeeping, and I can literally make $300 or $400 or $500, and it only costs me $200 in the same amount of time. Obviously, it makes good business sense to start to outsource that. So that's kind of what I help people. That's because nobody gets in Amazon to do their own bookkeeping. So the question is, when can I start to transition? And for a lot of people, the times are different. It just depends on what do you make an hour, and then you figure out well, how many hours a month or a week or a year do I spend doing my bookkeeping, and then that'll give you a good threshold for, well, if you can get bookkeeping for less than the time you spend, it makes sense.
And here's another aspect, and once again, it goes back to my econ background. When I look at my time per day, I got 24 hours. I need about 8 hours of sleep, so you get down to 16. I'm working a full-time job, which is 8 hours, 9 hours in the office, 2 hours of driving. I talk to Jeremiah during my drives home a lot, so he's very nice on that aspect of it. So I'm down another 10 hours there, so I'm like 6 hours of free time and time I can work on Amazon stuff. So for me, if I'm able to take a lunch break at work and go make $200 in one day by hitting 2 or 3 Walgreens and pay somebody to do whatever I need to get done, it makes really good sense to me to do that, because my time off also has a value to you.
Hmm.
Not only what you make when you work, there's also that what is leisure worth to you. And like I'm taking my MBA classes right now. I'm trying to get my MBA degree, and one of the econ class I'm taking was just stressing the fact that leisure has a value to you. People won't go to work for $5 an hour because they value their time off at more than that $5. So anytime you ever do anything with Amazon or any business moving forward, just always remember that even your time off has some value. So consider what that value is when making business decisions, and as long as you can financially support those decisions, you'll be able to actually have more time to do the things that are worth the most to you. It may not be money, it may be spending time with family, friends, maybe watching football, doing whatever, but just take that into account when you look at opportunity costs down the road for anything. It also works why some people buy products from Amazon through FBA services when they could buy it cheaper somewhere else. It's all about opportunity cost. People on the East Coast right now, they may not be able to get to a store. They may be having stuff delivered to them because they can't get out and get it. So their opportunity to go shovel through the snow may take them 5 hours to get to a store. Amazon may be delivered right to their door. So that opportunity cost really kind of permeates through everything we do here on Amazon. Just not a lot of people look at it that way. So sorry to kind of steal your thunder there, but just
No,
stuff that
that was beautiful.
I do. My background's econ. I love it. I talk about it all the time. My wife looks at me like I'm a crazy man, and it's just quite entertaining. So the last question here that I'm getting from two different people are they're wondering, Jeremiah, if you file sales tax in a state where your nexus is at, do you also have to file state income taxes for that state?
Wow, that's a great question. So, honestly, my jurisdiction stops at sales tax. I'm not an income tax accountant, so I guess I have to say that disclaimer. But my understanding is no, you don't, and the reason why is because you pay income tax in the state you live in. That's my understanding of it.
Okay, so if we'll do a little of additional research and reach out to a few of the people we're connected with to see if there's any other additional answers or caveats to that question. But I did see a few people that brought that up, and once again, Jeremiah is very upfront in saying he does not know the answer fully to that, so do
Hmm.
not take his word on that one. But we'll do some additional research and try to figure out where that is exactly at because we want to make sure everybody's getting the right information,
Yeah,
not just information that's out.
for sure.
So, is there anything else you want to cover, Jeremiah?
I'm good. If that's all the questions, I was building in some time to answer a few questions.
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
monitoring Facebook. If anybody has additional questions, go ahead and post them, and I'll pull them up real quick and answer, pass them on to Jeremiah for him to answer. But those are pretty much all my questions, and I just want everyone to know that if you take one thing away from this, it's the one thing I want to stress that I don't think Jeremiah touched on it, but I really want to stress it, is it's better to kind of get a hold of everything early than it is to do it later. Because when you're selling $600 a month, $2,000 a month, and start bumping up, it's fine and dandy. But if you're not putting the things in place now, when you do scale up to that next level, it's a pain in the ass to figure all this stuff out. I know that we just finished paying some back taxes for Tennessee from my sales tax stuff because I wasn't prepared. I thought I kind of had an understanding of what was going on. I was great, dandy, and then all of a sudden I get this thing saying, you forgot to file. Um, blah, 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 blah. Got to get this stuff figured out. So it's one of those things is it's better to take it sooner and try to figure this out, even though it's a pain in the ass, than it is to wait until becomes a really big mess. It's going to take a lot more time to get it fixed.
yeah, yeah.
So,
There's some sellers that I know of. They they kind of put it off and said, I'll get to it another day, and their businesses took off, and now they're looking at tens of thousands of dollars in back taxes that they owe because they just simply didn't take the time to get that understood.
Because you always think, well, it's not that big of a deal, it's not affecting me that much, and then the moment you actually take a look at it, when I put my stuff into TaxJar after the few months I was having, I was looking at about $5,000 worth of taxes I was going to have to pay. So, and that was back taxes, not including the penalties and the fees on top of that for when my dates were set. So it's just an interesting thing that I didn't really consider it, and all of a sudden you're like, shit, what do I have to do to get this fixed? So just a word of advice there. Take it upon yourself to go ahead and try to figure out how to get this done now, than waiting a few months and then going, crap, I don't know what to do. The only other question I see here is from Matthew. He says, may not be in full control. Need to get stuff straightened out. Jeremiah, if anybody does need your services, how can they get a hold of you, and when are you available to help?
Sure. So I'll say this time of the year is very, very busy. I'm on the FBA group. I post from time to time. You can definitely chat me on there if you have a quick question or flyby, you need something to help with. If you want to contact me personally to do some work, or you want like a personal consultation kind of thing, my website is nxtas.co, nextus.co. And I have a little form. You can reach out to me, or you can shoot me an email at jer, at nextus.co. And I'll put some of that information on the little PDF we're going to put together. Yeah, so I'm happy to at least have an upfront conversation with folks and help you get an understanding. And there's folks that I talk to every day. We don't end up working together because the timing isn't right, but I at least help them get an understanding of specifically for them which direction should they go and when should they do it, that kind of thing. So I always like, I'm in it. I'm a seller myself, so I understand the pain of it all. So it's very fulfilling for me just to know that folks are comfortable and they know what direction they need to go, and they at least have a little bit of peace of mind that they have things under wraps. So I'm happy to help folks out. A few things that I do as I make a living as an accountant, so and part of my day job is I help people get set up on that software. And I have like a little setup package that I do and train people to use bookkeeping software. That goes for about $300 for small sellers for a one-time setup. And then I also offer some ongoing support. So let's say you get set up and you're you want to do the bookkeeping yourself, and you just want to make sure you're doing things right, and you want to have someone take a look at it once a month or so. I offer some little packages like that, starting around $50 a month. And then if you wanted to actually, you say, you know what, I'm going to outsource all that. My lowest package, like I said, was $200, and it goes up to $400, $600 as you get larger. So. I'm in it to help you guys, so don't think I'm trying to make money off of you guys, but if I can provide some value for you, I want to be there to help you guys. So.
Okay, so what I'm going to have you do, Jeremiah, is right after you're done here, go ahead and post your website and stuff in both the groups, and if you need me to share it, pass it along via Facebook, I'll post it up there. For anyone who's attending and didn't get the entire hangout, we will be doing this again next week when my life's not so crazy. And we'll kind of be covering a few of the same things. So if there's any additional questions, ask them in the group this week. I'll collect them, and then we'll kind of do another one of these and kind of go through the basics again and some kind of bigger steps past that. And then feel free to reach out to Jeremiah and have him answer your questions. Know that I'm here to help too. I'm a seller just like you guys, and as you can tell, there are some things I have a handle on and some things where you got to have a little bit of outside help. So I want to thank you all for attending this evening, and if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask, and we will try to help you in the best way possible.
Take care, guys. Happy selling.
See you, Jeremiah.
Bye, Chris.